everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Tonight we are going to make kind of a barbecue chicken Smokehouse burger with kind of crispy onions, little barbecue sauce, and then we're going to season up our chicken burger with some Smokehouse flavors. And we're going to make some seasoned home fries, and then of course our onion straws that are going on our burger. So let's start by getting our potatoes up and ready for our home fries on here. We're going to kind of do like a steak, my basic steak fry to it, where we're going to coat it with some olive oil, flour, seasoned salt, and just give it a little crunch and batter to it. And I'm just going to do kind of a basic fry shape for this. A lot of times I do lots of different kind of cuts on it, but we're going to do a fry shape today. And then we'll work on seasoning up our meat and getting our onions dredged to be fried up for their little onion straws. Here. Okay. So I'm just going to kind of cut each potato, since these aren't super big, into fourths, and then we'll kind of cut them down into little French fry pieces. Here. We've got kind of a late start on dinner tonight. My daughter had her second high school game, and so far her high school season is going really well. Her first game they won 8-0, and then this game they won 9-0. So it's kind of been a big blowout, each one, which is always fun to watch, especially when you have to drive like an hour and a half for the game. But we're home and time still to make dinner. There we go. And get these again, breaking them apart. You want to try to make sure they're all roughly the same size, so that way they'll kind of crisp up in the oven at the same time. If you have any that are a lot bigger or thicker, then those will be nice and firm, instead of like a nice tender middle with a crispy edge on the outside. Okay. Now I'm just going to see if I have any that are a little big that I want to just thin out. We're going to pop them in our bowl, and then we're going to coat them with some olive oil, a little bit of all-purpose flour, and some Lowry seasoned salt. It gives it kind of that nice steak fry flavor, which I think will go well with our like Smokehouse burgers. Okay. Again, a little drizzle of olive oil, probably, enough to coat it, but they don't need to be glistening. So maybe like 1 to 2 tablespoons. And then we're going to do kind of 1 to 2 tablespoons of flour as well, because they don't need to be like completely breaded, but just enough where that oil and the breading, or the flour and the seasoning, kind of make like a little batter on it. We're going to use some Lowry seasoning salt for these. So I'm going to do a good shaky shake over it. We probably are going to have around like a teaspoon and a half. And then a little bit of onion powder. That's going to give it a nice savory flavor as well. About a teaspoon. And then a little bit of paprika, which is going to give it a nice golden color. So just a little shake, like half a teaspoon. And then I'm just going to get in here with my hands and really just kind of coat them with our seasoning and our flour. Get all those things, kind of make sure everyone gets covered up. That way they're all flavored up really nicely. And then we'll lay them out on our baking sheet, and we'll pop them in the oven in just a few minutes. But we're going to do some prep before we pop them in, so that everything kind of gets done at the same time. I'm going to take this is my sheet and a half, which I love for things that we've got to give everyone space. This is nice and big. That way I can have all of mine on one sheet instead of two, because if you do two, that bottom sheet in the oven doesn't ever crisp up as nice. So we're going to spread these out. And again, we want to make sure none of them are touching each other. That way they really do crisp up nicely on there, because if they're touching each other, wherever they touch, they're going to be soft instead of crispy. There we go. And you can just see all of those lovely spices kind of coating them. They'll really crisp up in the oven and will be delicious. Here we go. again. And you would think like 4 little potatoes, but potatoes always make a lot more fries than you think, just because they just spread out a lot. So when we bake potatoes, everybody eats a baked potato kind of per person. But with fries, I almost use like half the potatoes I would with baked potatoes. Okay, got these out. I'm gonna give my hands a quick rinse, and we're not gonna pop them in the oven yet, but we will soon. Okay, I'll move this right over here. And we're gonna start kind of prepping up our onions for it. So I'm gonna use actually this giant purple onion because I only have like 2 onions left, and I wanna save my yellow onion for something else that I want more of that onion flavor to come through. So the purple onion will work well with this one. This is actually kind of looks like 3 onions in one here. Look, you got 3 different little parts. It's massive. But that means there'll be lots of onion straws, which my family absolutely loves. And then I'm just going to cut it kind of in half, and then we're just going to do really thin slices because I don't want them to be like onion rings. I want them to be more like thin onion bits that are nice and breaded and get crispy and tender on the inside.
I do have a question. What's your feeling about parchment paper when baking, and especially with protein and veggies?
So parchment paper with baking baked goods, I absolutely love because it just makes the cleanup easier, cooks it up. I do not like parchment paper when making homemade French fries and whatnot because it doesn't get it as hot to give it a nice crispy edge as if you do it on the metal pan. I like parchment paper when cooking fish in the oven because you don't need that crisp up, and it just makes a little bit easier. So it's really like for different things, you can use it. Meatballs would be fine to use it on too because you're not wanting that crisp edge. But anything that I want to have a crispier edge, like I don't use it when I'm making focaccia because when you use it, that bottom doesn't get as crispy as if you've cooked it up on the metal part of the pan. So it's kind of just varies for what we have. I do love parchment paper, especially for baking though. It's definitely a game changer.
Would you use parchment paper on lemon tarts?
No, I would not use parchment paper on lemon tarts because you'd have to cut out little individual tartlets. Plus, it's a pie crust, and you want a nice crisp edge on a pie crust. See? My husband tried to pull a fast one on me. Okay, I'm going to break these onions apart. You can see we've got a lot of them, and for some reason they are very potent. I might be crying here in just a second. My husband's starting to cry. He's got very sensitive eyes. Well, I never really had that sensitive eyes, but after I had LASIK done, my eyes can't handle like anything now. Woo. Very teary here, guys. Okay. We're going to get my eyes. Okay, I've got them all broken apart, guys. I'm going to give my hands a quick rinse. And let's kind of mix up our dredge that we're going to coat these in. And we're going to do double coating on the dredge just like we would with fish or chicken or anything that we would fry up. The first kind of coating is going to be the flour-based coating, which will allow the second coating to stick on. So I'm going to put, since we've got a lot of onions here, I'm going to probably do about 2 cups of flour. And then we're going to season this up so it's got lots of flavor in it. And I'm going to do, for my salt, I'm going to do Lowry's because that's just going to play really well with the savory thing and go everything together. We want a good amount, so I'm trying to get about a tablespoon or so in there. We're going to add in some more paprika because that's going to give it a nice golden color. Well, might as well use up the rest of it. And we are going to add in a little bit of our kind of Mrs. Dash's everything seasoning and take off. We want about a tablespoon of this in here. And then I'm going to go get about a pinch of black pepper to put in there as well. So let me grab that over here. It'll be soon time for me to refill. So about a half a teaspoon of black pepper in there. If you want your onion straws to have a bit of heat, you could use a little bit of like cayenne pepper or red pepper in it. Let me grab a fork here. And then we're just going to mix this up, get those seasonings mixed around, and then we'll add in some panko breadcrumbs after we dredge them all. That way they'll have just like great flavor and crunch. Here we go. Just mix everything up. Sometimes the spices like to hide in the little part of it, but I always dredge in a bowl. I know some people like to dredge in like the little tiny half sheets, but these bowls work perfect. We're going to add in our eggs. I think 3 eggs should be enough for this. Now I say that and then I won't have enough. I'm going to pop the yolks. And then we're just going to mix these up. There we go. And this is going to be our egg wash for our dredge for our crispy onions that we'll be having on our kind of smokehouse chicken burgers. And then we're going to pop our fries here in the oven now. I just wanted to give a few minutes before we pop them in. But before we do our first kind of sets of dredging, let's go pop them in the oven so that they kind of crisp up nicely. I have my oven set on the air fryer setting at 425. If your oven doesn't have an air fryer setting, convection bake at 425 also works great, or you could do a traditional bake at 450 for it. You just want that nice high hot heat. And then I'm going to set my timer for about 15 minutes, double check on them, but I'll probably use a little bit more. And everybody, I'm sure, sees my skeleton. It looks like somebody turned on the eyes. You know, starting to see Halloween stuff out there, and I just love Halloween. So one of these days, I've told my daughter that I had to wait until September before we get our Halloween decorations out. I'm a little crazy with Halloween. I have 13 big tubs of Halloween decorations. So we will be fully decorating our house every year. I even have like a Halloween countdown candy calendar, kind of like an advent calendar, but I have that for Halloween as well. So be prepared. It's going to be epic, guys. Okay, let's get these, pop a few more of these out. And then we're going to put them through our dredge and then into our egg wash. I kind of do more of like a messy dredging here. It's not as nice as when I do my chicken or my fish because you don't need to be quite as precise with it. So we're just going to kind of throw these in and do our first kind of coats of it with our flour. There we go. And this is going to allow all that egg to kind of sit on it or like get stuck to the onion. And then when we're going to put some panko breadcrumbs in here. Here we go. So just kind of coat it up. These, when I make at Thanksgiving time, when I make my green bean casserole for my family, which is a huge green bean casserole because we're feeding like 40 people. I probably make about 10 onions, crispy straws or crispy onions for my green bean casserole with 10 onions, which part of it is, I would say probably only 2/3 make it on because all of my family run by and steal the crispy onions before I can actually get them in my casserole. Because when I make my green bean casserole, there's nothing processed in it. Everything is made from scratch. The cream of mushroom, fresh green beans, homemade onion straws. That's the best. My family never liked green bean casserole until I made it. Because we got to make it nice and delicious. Okay, we've got our onion straws kind of coated here. We're going to put our panko crumbs in here. And this is going to give our onion straws an even nicer crunch to it. You can use seasoned or plain. I've got my just plain in here. We're going to mix it up. And this is we're going to fry them up. And we're going to put these on our smokehouse burgers. And I'm pretty sure they're also just going to get eaten as their own because they're so delicious. So we've got those kind of coated here. And this is where I say I kind of do a little bit of a messy on it. We're just going to put it in the egg and then into here and kind of do like a rough coating of it because it's too much work to try to individually dip each one. So I kind of just do it chaotically. And then you just shake out any of that excess. And then we just kind of toss it here. You could probably do this, like do the 90s shake and bake style with this if you wanted to. I don't ever do that when I'm doing meat or anything like that, but with the crispy onion straws, you could definitely do it here. So this is the one you're going to get a little messy, but it's worth it because these things are delicious. My kids love it when I make them because they're so much better than an onion ring. Here we go. But they're not onion rings. They're crispy onion straws. Here we go. And we're going to coat these up for it. And then we're going to work on seasoning up our chicken for our chicken burgers on here. We're going to do some smokehouse flavors for them, which will be absolutely, I think, delicious with the crispy onion straws. And we're going to use a little bit of liquid smoke, which if you've never used liquid smoke before, it is delicious. It gives you as if you spent the time to smoke all of your food, gives you that with just a little bit of a little drizzle. So nice to be able to do a little mock, stuff like that. There we go. So let's get this bowl out of the way. And we'll get it coated up.
You have a question? Can you go over what's in the powder?
Yes. So first we kind of seasoned up our flour. So about 2 cups of flour with about a tablespoon of Lowry seasoning salt, about a teaspoon of paprika, some Mrs. Dash's original blend seasoning in here. So just a lot of great, like the spice. And then after we did our first initial dredge, then we went back through with our panko breadcrumbs to give it a little bit more kind of flavors, a little crunch on it. And I'm just going to kind of coat them again. You can see they're just full and they're kind of breaded up, but they're not like an onion ring where they're perfectly battered. You don't need that. Now look, my hands are a mess, so let me give them a quick wash. Here we go. Gonna kind of coat them all off. There we go. We're going to start heating up our oil so that we can start frying these off. And then we're going to work on our seasonings for our chicken burgers because they'll be delicious. So I'm going to add in, since we have a lot of onion rings or onion straws, I'm going to add in a good amount of oil here. Probably, I want enough, not necessarily to submerge them, but we'll be flipping them halfway through. But since I have multiple batches, I need a little bit more than if I were just cooking up one batch. And this is 1 onion. So you can see we've got quite a bit of onion straws from that 1 onion, but it was massive.
You got to compliment that she says, "Here we go," when she cooks now.
Yes, I have my funny little sayings. Apparently everyone loves it when I say beautiful. Which, as a teacher, I always was like, you're taught to constantly praise kids throughout. So everything I do. And I feel like when I'm cooking, I praise all the time. I'm like, oh, great job. That's beautiful. That's wonderful. It's just the inherent part of being a teacher,
So you have a question, what kind of oil?
So I am using just olive oil. We're not going to be heating it so high that it's going to get to its smoke point. I like to fry my stuff over about a 350, which is perfect for olive oil, and it's a little bit more heart healthy. And I just like to have one oil in my house. So that's kind of what I use for everything. We're going to mince up our green onions here because we're going to just kind of work on our seasonings for our chicken burgers, not turkey. I will say I prefer ground chicken over ground turkey. Ground turkey is a bit more dry, where I find that chicken is a bit more tender, a little bit more moist. So a better end product in the end. So we're going to mince up our green onions, nice and small. It's going to give it, nice little bright flavor in there. In here. Here we go. And I just want them small because I don't want to be eating my burger and then I pull out like a giant green onion. Here we go. Okay. We can get our ground chicken going in, assuming I can open this. So we've got 2 pounds of ground chicken, which will I'm going to make probably 6 to 7 burgers with it on here. There we go. The last week or 2 weeks ago, I made the viral chicken Caesar salad wraps. And I'm just like, I rarely ever, use ground chicken. And then I'm like, I used to make this delicious kind of ground chicken burger when I was thinking. Now, this is not quite the one I used to make, when I was younger. I used to make one where I used half the ground chicken and half chicken sausage, and it makes a really good burger. But we're going to do a smokehouse flavor on here.
I have a question. How many are you feeding tonight?
So tonight we are feeding 7, but my little ones kind of share. They don't quite eat as much as the bigger ones. Although sometimes I say my youngest 3, even my 10-year-old, she eats like a feather sometimes. Okay. Here's the liquid smoke I was talking about. This is going to give it a nice kind of smoky flavor. Be careful with this. A little goes a long way. So I never just free pour it. I actually pour it in the cap. I want about like a half a teaspoon of this because a little goes a long way to give you that nice smoky flavor, but you don't want to go overboard. I'm going to also use some Worcestershire sauce. This is going to help break down the natural fat in the chicken and keep your burgers juicy. We're going to want about a tablespoon of this in here. And then I'm going to use some onion powder. So we've got our green onions and then onion powder, which is going to give us a nice savory flavor as well. And I'm going to use about a teaspoon or so. And then my beloved garlic salt. We're going to use about, I want to say 1.5 teaspoons of garlic salt in here. You want enough to kind of season up our burger well. And then my last, I'm just going to use some of this. This is the Costco version of Mrs. Dash's original spices. We're going to use about a teaspoon of this as well. So we've got lots of flavors in there because with chicken, you've got to season it up. It's a little bit bland if you don't. Otherwise, it's on me. And chicken is a lower fat content meat. And so I always like to add just a little bit of olive oil, like a teaspoon or so, just to help make it a little bit more juicy. Always reminds me, I can't remember what show it was, but it had Johnny Weir, the ice skater, in it. And it was like a celebrity cooking show. I'm going to put our first batch in. But he made chicken meatballs or turkey meatballs. It was like the healthy thing to make. But he didn't add any fat to it. And the judges always complain, oh, you've got to add fat with it to make it more juicy and flavorful. It's not going to, if you're adding olive oil, you're not making it any really more unhealthy. But it's going to bring up the flavors. Okay, our oil is nice and hot, so I turned it down to about, I'm going to turn it down to about a 5 so that we're cooking over medium heat. We're not going to crowd our onion straws in here. We're just going to put a pile, and I'm probably going to have to do 3 batches here because you want them to each have their space to kind of crisp up in the pan. So don't overcrowd them. I think that's always a mistake a lot of people do when they're frying up things. They put too much in there, and then it's not going to get that golden crispy things. If you put too much, you're going to get a more of a soggy fry on it. So we're going to cook it over a medium heat now that the oil is nice and hot. But you always want to bring that oil up hot until when you put a drop of water in, it sizzles. Now let's shape up our meat patties here. So I'm just going to go through with my fingers to combine all of these like spices and herbs here, because I want to make sure you get them kind of mixed all the way through. Here we go. So now that we have it, and now I'm going to try to make as even patties as I possibly can, which doesn't always work. Now, if you're going to make a lot of these, what you could do, if you want them to be a bit more like smooth and perfect, is you put a little bowl of olive oil to the side and you dip your fingers in, and that's going to allow the meat to not stick to you. I put a little bit of olive oil in here so it doesn't stick as much, but sometimes ground chicken can be a bit sticky or sticky. So if you have a problem with it sticking, just kind of coat your hands in olive oil and then you'll be able to shape the meat really well. There we go. And again. And these are just going to have just a great kind of smokehouse flavor. With ground chicken, unlike ground beef, you really got to season it up because you can't just take ground chicken out of the package and cook it up. It's going to be so bland. So always make sure you season it.
You have a question, what's in the ground chicken?
So we put 2 green onions minced up, and then we've got about a half a teaspoon of liquid smoke. We've got some Worcestershire, about a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, which is going to help kind of cut through the fat and make it nice and juicy. We've got garlic salt, onion powder, and a little bit of Mrs. Dash's original spices. Here we go. Now we're going to wash my hands and we'll check on our potatoes. I'm assuming they're going to need a little bit more, but I always like to check because sometimes things crisp up pretty quickly in the air fryer. But I'm going to give my hands a quick rinse and then we'll check on our potatoes. There we go. And then we're going to also put some paper towels down so that when I take out my onions, we can have them soak up that extra grease. Let me grab this just in case. They are actually looking pretty good. I'm just going to feel how tender they are. They are perfect. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cancel this off. I'm going to leave them in there to keep them hot. The temperature, they're not going to crisp up anymore, but they'll stay perfect.
A question. What's with the pineapple?
So somebody actually on stream said, if you're having issues with your pineapples ripening from the top, put them upside down. So I figured I'd try it, scientific experiment, because these pineapples, when I got them, I did like an Amazon Fresh order, and they were like super, super green. And sometimes when you get them, when they're that green, they don't like to ripen up. So we're putting them upside down, seeing if that tops will get nice and ripe too. Who knows? We'll see. I'll have to update you. Hopefully tomorrow they'll be ready to cut up. I feel like the bottom half of the pineapple is definitely ready, but not quite the top half. Okay, let's give our onions a flip. And this is why I say you don't need to have them completely submerged, because we're just going to flip them over to kind of do our nice crisping up for it. I'm going to turn them to a 6 now. And let's get our pan heating up for our burgers here. So I'm going to put a little bit of olive oil in our pan as well. For it, I'm using, this is my Scan pan, which used to be my favorite pan until I got my HexClad, but I only have one 12-inch griddle hex pad. But a Scan pan, I love this pan in the sense that it has a cast iron coating, but it's really thin. So I have to kind of, when you wash it, then you just rub it with a little bit of oil on it to keep it kind of seasoned and stuff. But you don't have to do all the work as those big, heavy cast iron ones. But it's good for like cooking up like burgers or skillet, anything you want that like meat that works really well in skillet. I love it, but it's not like 20 pounds. Okay, once this is nice and hot, then we will put our burgers on there for that. Okay, let's check on here. These are almost getting ready for our kind of crispy edge part for it. You can see once they've got that, I always look for the kind of that crispier edges on them, that kind of golden brown for it. We put paprika in the seasoning, which means we're going to have a more of a reddish golden brown versus a pale golden. So paprika is a great spice to give your fried chicken or fried anything a more of like that golden orange amber color to it versus, I think you can cook it longer. Just takes a blonde fry to a nicer color.
Question. Can you go over what's on the onion straws?
Yes. So on the onion straws, I'll just grab everything, keep it super simple. We've got onion powder, some Mrs. Dash's, this is Kirkland's brand of it, but Mrs. Dash's original spices, Lowry's seasoned salt, and paprika. And so that we mixed in with 2 cups of flour. Then we dredged everything. And then after we dredged them the first time, I mixed in about a cup or so of panko breadcrumbs. And then we put into the egg and then into the panko dredge for the second time. And then they're up and ready. Okay, these are looking good. So I'm going to start taking them out. We're going to lay them on here so that they can stay nice and crispy. You don't want to ever just put them down on a baking sheet, because what will happen is anywhere they're on that like smooth surface will get soggy instead of crisped up. And this helps absorb up some of that extra grease in there. But you can also put them on like a cookie drying rack if you want to. Those also help kind of pick it up. But I prefer this because then I can use that paper towel to kind of clean up the extra oil as well. Let's get these in here, and then our pan should be nice and hot to put our burgers in and let them start kind of cooking. And then we're going to be kind of getting it down to the final countdown. Okay. Again, you don't want to overload your pan as you're frying because you want each one to kind of get crisp up. There we go. But it's nice. Like this was just one. I mean, granted, it was a really large onion, but it makes a lot of onion straws. Okay, let's get this. I've got it nice and hot. I'm going to turn it down to about a 5 now. And we're going to kind of put our patties on and let it cook. And then for cheese, I'm going to be using some Munster cheese on my kind of burgers today. I wanted a creamier white cheese that I think will just pick up the flavors a little bit nicer on here. So we'll add that on in just a second. Give this a good smush down. Okay. So let's get our things, and then I've got my brioche buns, which is funny because my almost 2-year-old, he'll be 2 in October, and he steals my buns or my bread out of my bread drawer because I have his drawer underneath my oven, and he takes like little bites out of the packaging, like the whole packaging. He's always stealing them, and I'm just like, you gotta stop stealing them. Okay. We're going to kind of get these out. I'm going to butter them up and then pop them in my oven with my hot stuff so that they get a little bit to be nice and hot, and they'll get a little toasty on there while we're waiting. Slide these up because they'll be nice and delicious. Otherwise, you could just do them. If I had more room on my stove, I'd do them on like, toast them up there, but we'll just do it like this. Kind of keep it nice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to just toast up. I know I made 8 burgers, but I'm only going to toast up 6 right now because I don't think we'll get through all 8 of them. So just take a little bit of room temperature butter. We're just going to spread a little teeny tiny bit on each one. You don't have to have a lot. There we go. And then I'm going to sprinkle just a smidge of garlic salt over the top. That way they'll have this just nice little kind of almost like a garlic bread flavor to it. There we go. So we got that. And then we're going to toast these up. We'll take them out of the oven in just a second and put our cheese on it so our cheese can start to melt as well, which will give them just a nice flavor instead of putting it necessarily on the patty. So I'm going to take out our kind of crispy potatoes here. We've got this nice kind of golden color on it from our paprika and the Lowry seasoned salt. I'm going to turn this on now so it can start heating. And there we go. So these, my pan is very, very hot, but you see how they've just got this lovely kind of crispy edge on them, which is perfect for home fries. And they're going to have that steak fry flavor that you get when you go to a restaurant and you get those nice seasoned fries. That's from the Lowry seasoned salt. So they're going to be delicious. Okay. Here we go. I'm going to flip our chicken burgers now. I'll get it right underneath it. Beautiful. And they're going to see, you can just see they're nice and juicy. And just by adding that Worcestershire and a little bit of olive oil allows it to stay nice and juicy versus it being like kind of dull. Let's give our crispy onion straws a little turn here. That way they both kind of can fry up and crisp up on here. There we go. And I was kind of deciding today when I was making dinner, should I do pickle chips? Because I was like, ooh, pickle chips would be delicious. Or this, or I wanted to do fried green onions, fried green tomatoes. But only a few of us would like the fried green tomatoes because some people in my family are a bit boring. Okay. Let's grab this so that when we're ready to pop these out. And then I'm going to take my French fries here. Now that they're out, I'm going to put them all in a pile. And what that does is it allows them to kind of stay nice and tender, but crispy at the same time. But you see how when you cook them on the side, you get this nice crispy color. And we've got this lovely kind of reddish brown color from the paprika and that Lowry seasoning salt. So they're going to be nice and tender on the inside, but they're nice and crispy. And that's what I said. The paprika is going to give you this lovely kind of golden brown. It's just like in our onion straws, we get this nice kind of amber color, and that's from that paprika. So it gives you a mild flavor to it, but it gives you just like a lovely kind of crispy crunch to it. So that's how you get that just really pretty fry. Okay, let's get this batch of our crispy onion straws out. And I used red onions today, but honestly, you could use any onion for this. They all work really well. We're going to take this batch out, pop the next one in, and then we're going to go grab our buns here in just a second and put our cheese on it so they can start to melt on there. Okay. I'm going to make sure I grab all of my little onion bits out. I will say the first batch always looks the best. Second batch gets a little bit darker, and then the third batch, because you have little remnants left over in your pan, that will get more and more dark. I'm going to just kind of coat these with whatever we have left on here. And we'll throw these in. And then I think our first round of burgers are also about ready to come off as well. So let's grab. I think we're good enough on here. Take this over to the side. I'm going to go grab my out of the pan. Let's check these first. These are actually looking good. Look at this beautiful, nice kind of sears on both sides. So I'm going to take these off. We'll let them sit on here. We'll get our next round in, and then we're going to go put our cheese on our buns that we have toasting up in there. That way we will get a nice kind of crunch on our buns. Let's pop our next set of burgers in before we head over there so they can start cooking. There we go. And I will say, if you're not used to using ground chicken is definitely a looser meat, a little bit more easily to manipulate. So just always be careful when you're moving it around because it's not going to hold its shape quite as well as ground beef. Okay, let's go grab our buns out of the oven. Oh, steamed in our mouth. Perfect. We got this nice golden crispy coast on it. We're going to add our cheese on here, and that's going to melt. I just got steamed in the face when I opened that up. And this is going to give just a lovely little crunch on there. They're still very nice and, like, as you can see, nice and soft on the other side. But we've got our toast up here. And now we're going to pop our cheese on. And I'm using a Havarti, or not Havarti, Munster, because, again, we want a nice creamy cheese for this. And these are brioche buns. I find brioche buns just taste better. But they're a bit more golden brown because they have, brioche has a little bit of sugar in it. So they're more golden than your typical bun because of the sugar you added. That's what caramelizes. My husband just stole a French fry. Never waits for dinner. Here we go. So we've got that there. Those should kind of heat up nicely while they're waiting. And then we'll pop and build everything here in just a second. Let's see how these are cooking. Beautiful. Okay, turn that up. Let's get these flipped over. And I'm cooking these over about a medium heat. You don't want to cook them too high because you do want your chicken to cook all the way through. So you want to keep it nice, kind of a medium temperature once your pan's heated up. Let's give our onion straws a quick toss here. And then, we're going to build up our first plate for you guys so that you guys don't have to sit through my final round of frying and whatnot because we've got everything done to make our first plate. So let me grab this out of the way. Gotta grab my barbecue sauce. And bring my chicken burgers over here. We're gonna get ready to plate up while the rest of it is frying off. We're a big family, so I typically have to do things in stages. But most people aren't cooking for this many people. They would just be doing one round. So, it always takes a little bit longer with this. Let's grab our first thing. We've got our nice, soft, toasted up bun, which will give you a little bit of that nice kind of crunch in here. We're going to put on our chicken burger patty. And this is seasoned with green onions and Worcestershire sauce, a little bit of Smokehouse flavor. We've got our crispy onion straws that are going to give a nice crunch. They've got our Lowry seasoned salt in it. We're going to drizzle with a little bit of our barbecue sauce to give you that kind of complete that Smokehouse. And then we've got our Munster cheese on there. with it. So we've got this just delicious kind of smokehouse burger there. And then, of course, we will have it with our seasoned up home fries, which are just going to be full of flavor from the Lowry seasoning salt, and they're nice and crispy and delicious. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're cooking for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos into our link on our page. So if you ever want to recreate any of these videos at home, just go to that link and search for what we cook for. So chicken smokehouse burgers with crispy onions and home fries, and then you can watch and cook along with us again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gear in it. I've got my pans in there, my Hexclad, I've got my baking sheets, I got my big baking sheet, which I absolutely love, but all the different gadgets that I use in there, my knives, cutting boards, well, all that for you guys to check out if you're interested. But again, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe.